YouTube, it's Tone back with another one for you, and this one is called use of a bill of exchange to discharge debts, and that's the name of this book here. If you guys need to email me, it's free. You already know that. Everything you see on the channel is free. A lot of the information is free. I charge for my time essentially. If you ever do need personal assistance, and then for documents that I personally create as well. Okay, so let's get into this. By the end of this whole little series, you're gonna know exactly how to use a bill of exchange, and I'll make sure that you understand the process from the beginning until the end. So there's still a lot more research and studying that you're gonna have to do, I think, before you feel confident enough to go in there and do this shit. I would absolutely do this shit, and if you think that I'm not gonna, you're out of your fucking mind. So I mean, I already have my private banking set up for years. I've just never done nothing with it. This is going to be the information I think that's going to help put you in a position to be able to execute this properly. So let's get into this. So use of a bill of exchange to discharge debts. So this is from 2003. That shit is obviously old. So I'll go ahead and recommend that you read up on your up to date codes and statutes and things like that are going to correspond with things that you're going to see in here. Because in here you may see references to Uniform Commercial Code and things like that. And usually, I mean, not usually, absolutely every single time, you're going to see in the code states, in the states codes and statutes that they're going to correspond to the UCC, because they have to, because everything's commercial. So you'll see a version of the state codes and statutes in the Uniform Commercial Code format, because it is universal, meaning that it applies everywhere because it is commercial. So some conventions used in this document. Throughout this file, you will see information presented in two different fonts and colors. Instructions pages will use the Arial font and navy blue as the color. This page uses this font and color. So that's the color of this font here. So the information on the instruction page will be educational in nature. Most of the time will contain instructions to follow and tasks to perform. And now keep in mind too that they're pretty particular about how the bonds need to look and the type of paper and the thickness and things like that, and the dimensions of it. So when you hear me make reference to it, hey, just pay close mind to that fact. So instructions will generally not be mixed with the documents pages, but if it is necessary to mix them, the font and text color conventions will be followed. So if there are instructions embedded in a document page or highlighted text, you will need to delete the instructions and remove the highlighting before printing the final version of the document. Essentially, if you see a highlight of some shit like this and you copy and paste it, which you probably shouldn't do, but you can, then you want to take the highlights out of it before you print the shit, obviously. So documents, contacts, affidavits, etc. pages use Times Roman font and in black ink, and you will customize the document pages and then do something with them, such as mail them or record them. That would be with your at the county. That's where you would make a record. And everything that you do with this whole process is going to be via notary. You're going to be using the notary, and you're going to be using their address as the return address. That is court. That is court. So there will be no court. You're holding court. So please print, preview, and if there is actual court, because these people don't want to do what they're supposed to, there's going to be some big fucking problems for them. I promise you that. So that is court. All right. So please print, preview your documents before you print them. This is especially important if you have substantial personal information you have added to a document, such as many other names. Also, some printers will not let you print closer to the margin than 0.55 inches. Feel free to adjust the margins if your printer will not accommodate this current spacing. Meaning that it's making it complicated for you to get the documentation done properly because of the margins are not allowing you to get the sentences out properly. So you can fix that, you can correct that. I mean, you should know how to use a computer and all that by this point. So discharge debt. We suggest you be extremely judicious, right? And so, and that goes with what I was just saying. So make sure you keep real good track of all your documentation, because this is court. You are the judge here, okay? Or the notary is, put it like that. So in the use of the BOE's bill of exchanges, and only use of a bill of exchange, if it is in the conjunction with a conditional acceptance affidavit where the creditor must prove their claims before negotiating the BOE, Meaning that if it's a claim that you didn't enter into voluntarily and you have somebody trying to send you a bill and all that, that's different than if you made an agreement with somebody that's going to accept this, because then it'll be easier to get the process done because there's not going to be any fucking resistance there from somebody who thinks that they know what they're talking about. So we are working on strategies to deal with creditors who act as if your BOE, bill of exchange, is no good. And you know, and you're gonna run into that because a lot of people, I mean, you'd be surprised and probably think that a lot of people know this shit. A lot of people actually don't. A lot of people don't fucking know this. So as we gain further experience in these areas, we will make additional information available. The following is provided for your education. The purpose of this file is to create documents, bill of exchange, letter of advice, that can be used to discharge debts. A bill of exchange, BOE, cannot be used to buy an item, a car, house, stereo, big screen TV, etc. A bill of exchange can only be used to discharge pre-existing debts. At this point, we believe that some sort of loan would have to exist or credit used to purchase the item, and then a BOE can be used to discharge the loan. We say discharge rather than pay a debt because since 1933, we have only had the ability to discharge a debt. The basis of all money in circulation in America since 1933 has been a Federal Reserve note. A note, which is a debt instrument, a promise to pay. So nobody's ever gotten paid since you ever got paid with Federal Reserve notes. So they still owe you that because you actually you gave physical labor and they gave you a green piece of paper. So you fucking took a loss, which is why I don't understand why you're paying taxes and shit too. You're taking a loss every time you take a check with that fake money. So a note is a debt instrument, a promise to pay. Common sense tells you that you can't pay a debt with a debt, a Federal Reserve note, or any other promise to pay. The foundation of our ability to discharge a debt using a BOE is House Joint Resolution 192 of June 5th, 1933. If you are not familiar with this legislation, you should study it thoroughly. And that is, the main, I think, basis for, I think, a lot of the people here believing that they're able to discharge debt and things like that is based off of House Joint Resolution and things like that. And so then you'll have people come and say, well, it never got ratified. It's not law and it's not blah, blah, blah. Well, Public Law 73-10 says the same fucking thing, and that is law, all right? So what is it? What's the problem? So just because somebody doesn't understand something doesn't mean that you're wrong. And just because you don't believe it doesn't mean that it's not true. Okay, so how creditors respond to BOEs. The most frequent question in the mind of anyone who wants to know how to use a BOE is how will the creditors respond? First, we should say that we don't know of a single instance in which anyone has gone to prison for issuing a properly executed BOE, but we must also say that in many cases, creditors pretend that they don't know what a BOE is, or like they are not, like they don't know what a BOE is, or are going to not like receiving your BOE and will accept your BOE and pretend they didn't receive it, not processing them, acting dishonorably. Which they do have to process. That's the same thing as if you sent them a check and they just put it in their fucking drawer, right? And that shit is stealing. That's actually stealing. So before elaborating on this point, let's explain why we use the terms creditors in quotes. We believe that we as living souls are ultimately the source of all credit. I mean, we already know this. I fucking established this pretty damn well. Not only with fucking gematria, but also with any form of forensic accounting is going to show that you are in fact a creditor because the funding of the source of the transaction doesn't go beyond your signature. That's where that shit all starts and that's where the fuck it ends. So this being the case, we the people are the ultimate creditors. And creditors is an anagram of directors, right? The same exact letters, just mixed around. So creditors is directors, and so when you're the creditor, you are the boss. Who the fuck's gonna tell you what? And those whom have all the creditors and those who have called creditors in the past are really just fictional organizations, and they are fictional organizations. Persons created by the government to whom we issue some of our credit. And every time you give somebody a social, you're issuing them credit, and they are going to take that credit. So know that every time you ever gave somebody a social, they more than likely hit that for at least $250,000, probably every quarter, so every 3 months. So we've said that and you can get that all back with a W-4 sandwich too as well. So we've said that the creditor in most cases will like your BOE. This is because they have been accustomed to receiving a lot of interest and principal payments on loans they made us by lending us our own credit. And that's another thing. So when you issue your own money, which you can and you will because you're a private banker, it's an interest-free money. And so they don't like that shit because essentially they look at it like they're like the little private business of the Federal Reserve notes is losing money. Or they probably don't want you to go out there and start telling people about this shit because It's not that the country loses. It's that literally you kill the country's debt every time you make an acquisition using something like this without having to use uh, private fiat on with interest. So it's interest free money, and this is what I do too. So I discharge all these debts. I'm literally knocking. So for every $1 I take out of there by discharging it, I knock $10 off of the $10 off of the national debt. That's why I do that. That's why I discharge taxes, student loans, and hospital bills over $10,000 for free. You can send them in front and back PDF version of the first page of your bill. Send it in. If it's over 10,000, I'll discharge that shit for free. And there is no limit. $100,000, $1,000,000, send it. If it's a tax bill, hospital bill, student loan, send it. So said another way, they have to pretend to loan us money, then ask us to pay back the principal with interest, then when in fact they loaned us nothing from our own assets. When we use the BOE to discharge the purported debt, we cut off the supply of all the profits that they think that they deserve. At this stage in the use of BOEs, it is hard to predict exactly how a creditor will respond, but you need to be prepared for the possibility that they will act as if you have never paid them. If you are discharging credit card debt, they may close or cancel the account, turn your account over to a collection agency, and put negative information on your credit report. None of this means that your BOE was invalid, illegal, or fraudulent. It just means that they don't like it. Now, what I would do, and what you should do every time you send any type of instrument to these clowns, what you're gonna do is put a $1 stamp on it. And if they want to pretend that they never fucking got that, then you call the feds, right? For one, and you call the post office, and then you have them answer to that because that shit is mail fraud. They're gonna pretend to never have fucking received that mail, and make sure you cancel that stamp so that shit is paid, so you have your claims in equity. And watch what they do. They're gonna tell you to have a great fucking day and come pick up your car. Facts. So fuck what they're talking about. So creditors who don't accept or recognize BOEs, it is quite possible that the creditor will continue to send you presentments that reflect that your BOE payment was never posted. It is also possible that they will either not answer your notice of error or will provide adequate proof for their position. If either of these things occur, you will need to take some additional steps. We suggest the following steps. The first step, send the creditor a conditional acceptance affidavit. And you got to send an affidavit because that's going to stand as fact and law when they don't fucking respond to it because they can't. So if the creditor does not respond to this appropriately, you will need to do the second step, the notarial protest. So these two steps are bundled in a notarial protest product. Ask the person who told you about the redemption information to give you further information. The notarial protest will result in a certificate of dishonor against the creditor. The certificate of dishonor can be used to help clear any negative information the creditors put on your credit report and may be used in court proceedings. We will be looking for a credit repair service to assist with the steps. So throughout the rest of this file, the beginning of each step will start with instructions will be preceded with a letter for the step. The step will be identified with a large bold red text giving the step name and letter. And so we'll get into that in the next video. I'm going to try to keep it short for the ADD people like myself. So just, keep in mind that every time you send these people an instrument, you're going to have to put that $1 stamp on that. You're going to have to cancel that for sure. That's going to take all this shit right out of their jurisdiction and put it right into the Universal Postal Union. And personally, I think once they see that stamp, they're already going to know what the fuck time it is. So, you can do that, and we'll get into different modes and options that you have throughout this whole process later on in the video. So, it is a game of chess. Stop playing checkers with these clowns. That's what I got for you for now. Until we meet again.